something. Have you ever wondered why the people you sacrifice the most for often value you the least? Why the more available you become, the more invisible you feel? Why your loyalty is remembered only when someone needs another favor? You believed kindness would earn respect. Instead, it earned expectations. You thought giving more would make people appreciate you. Instead, they simply ask for more. The painful truth is this: people rarely measure your worth by what you give. They measure it by what they must risk losing. The moment your presence becomes guaranteed, your value begins to disappear. This is not because the world hates kind people. It is because human nature quickly becomes blind to what is always available. Today's message may challenge everything you have believed about goodness, generosity, and love, because kindness without strength is often mistaken for weakness. Compassion without boundaries becomes permission. And a heart that never says no slowly teaches everyone that it exists only to serve. If you've ever felt overlooked, used, taken for granted, or respected only after you finally walked away, then stay until the end, because today, you are not learning how to become cruel. You are learning why protecting your kindness is the greatest act of kindness you can ever offer yourself. There is a dangerous lie that many people carry from childhood. If you are good enough, everyone will treat you well. It sounds beautiful. It feels moral. But life has a way of exposing beautiful lies with painful lessons. You enter relationships believing honesty will be rewarded. You stay loyal long after others have stopped respecting your loyalty. You forgive repeatedly because you believe mercy changes hearts. You keep showing up even when nobody shows up for you. You become the dependable one, the understanding one, the patient one, the one who never complains, the one who always adjusts. The one who always says it's okay. But quietly, something begins to change. People stop asking if your sacrifice is convenient. They simply expect it. They stop thanking you. They assume it. They stop respecting your time because you have convinced them your time belongs to everyone except yourself. This is one of the oldest patterns in human behavior. Whatever demands no price eventually loses perceived value. Look around your own life. The things people fight hardest to keep are rarely the things they receive without effort. Scarcity creates appreciation. Certainty often destroys it. When your kindness is unlimited, people stop seeing it as generosity. They redefine it as obligation. They begin believing your yes is their right, and the day you finally say no, they accuse you of becoming selfish. Notice the irony. The same people who enjoyed years of your sacrifice become offended the moment you protect yourself once. That reaction reveals something painful. They never loved your kindness. They loved their access to it. There is a profound difference. Real respect honors your generosity. Manipulation depends on it. Many people confuse peacekeeping with wisdom. They avoid conflict because they fear rejection. They apologize for things they never did. They smile while carrying silent resentment. They remain quiet while others repeatedly cross their boundaries, not because they are weak, but because somewhere inside them lives a desperate hope. If I keep being good enough, eventually they will choose me. Yet respect cannot grow where self-abandonment lives. Every time you betray your own values just to maintain someone else's comfort, you teach them an unforgettable lesson. You teach them that your boundaries are negotiable, that your emotions are optional, that your needs can wait. Human beings learn not only from what you say, they learn from what you consistently allow. People observe your reactions. They study your limits. They notice which lines they can cross without consequences. Every unanswered disrespect becomes tomorrow's expectation. Every tolerated insult becomes permission for another. This is why kindness without wisdom becomes self-destruction. Mercy is beautiful, but mercy without discernment invites exploitation. Love is powerful, but love without standards attracts those who consume instead of contribute. Some people are not looking for someone to love. They are looking for someone who never refuses them. Those are entirely different desires. You cannot satisfy the second without destroying yourself. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must choose between being endlessly accepted and being deeply respected. Rarely do both exist without boundaries. Respect grows wherever people recognize consequences. It grows wherever your absence becomes possible. It grows wherever your standards remain stronger than your fear of losing approval. Many people fear becoming disliked. They should fear becoming used far more, because dislike wounds the ego. Being used slowly destroys the soul. One happens suddenly. The other happens one silent compromise at a time. The tragedy is that most people never notice the damage until they no longer recognize themselves. They wake up emotionally exhausted, resentful, and peeved, wondering why giving so much much never brought them peace. The answer was never hidden. Peace was never meant to come from endless sacrifice. Peace comes from alignment, from living in a way that honors both compassion and self-respect. The strongest people are rarely the loudest. They simply understand one eternal principle. A person who cannot walk away will always be negotiated downward. But the moment people realize your dignity cannot be purchased with approval, something changes. Conversations change, treatment changes, expectations change. Not because you became harder, because you finally became clear. Your kindness remains, but now it travels with wisdom. Your generosity remains, but now it requires reciprocity. Your forgiveness remains, but now it no longer cancels accountability. This is not the death of compassion. It is the birth of healthy strength. And strength has always been the silent guardian of genuine kindness. There is a quiet tragedy that unfolds in the lives of countless people, and it rarely announces itself with loud arguments or dramatic betrayals. Instead, it arrives disguised as virtue. It hides behind endless patience, constant availability, and the belief that saying yes to everyone is the highest expression of goodness. You convince yourself that every sacrifice is planting seeds of appreciation. You believe that every time you overlook an insult, forgive another offense, or place someone else's needs before your own, you are building stronger relationships. Yet over time, something unexpected begins to happen. The very kindness you believed would earn respect slowly becomes the reason people stop respecting you at all. Human beings are remarkable at adapting to what is consistently available. What begins as an extraordinary act of generosity gradually becomes ordinary. What was once received with gratitude soon becomes expected without acknowledgement. This is not always because people are cruel. It is because familiarity changes perception. The extraordinary becomes routine, and the routine becomes invisible. If your kindness is always available without conditions, people eventually stop recognizing it as kindness. They begin treating it as your responsibility. They no longer see your sacrifices as gifts because gifts lose their meaning when they are guaranteed. Many people mistake endless giving for love, but love without wisdom can become a prison. Every time you silence your own needs to protect someone else's comfort, you quietly send a message. You tell the world that your feelings can wait. You teach others that your limits are flexible while theirs remain important. You communicate without speaking a single word that your peace is negotiable. People often learn more from what you repeatedly allow than from what you occasionally say. If disrespect carries no consequence, it slowly transforms into accepted behavior. If your boundaries disappear whenever someone pressures you, they learn that persistence is stronger than your convictions. There is a profound difference between serving others and surrendering yourself. Service comes from strength. Surrender comes from fear. One is a conscious choice rooted in generosity. The other is often driven by the anxiety of losing acceptance. Many people continue giving not because they genuinely want to, but because they fear rejection. They believe that if they become less available, less agreeable, or less accommodating, they will become less lovable. This fear quietly controls their decisions. It persuades them to apologize for things that require no apology. It encourages them to remain silent when they should speak. It convinces them that protecting themselves is somehow selfish. The irony is painful. The more desperately you chase acceptance by abandoning yourself, the less respect you receive. Respect cannot grow where self-neglect becomes a habit. It is difficult for others to value someone who repeatedly communicates that they do not value themselves. Every compromise made against your own principles for the sake of temporary approval weakens the foundation of your identity. Eventually, people stop asking whether their requests inconvenience you because experience has taught them that your answer will almost always be yes. Kindness should never require the destruction of your dignity. A compassionate heart is one of the greatest strengths a person can possess, but compassion without discernment becomes dangerous. There are individuals who appreciate generosity, and there are individuals who consume it. The difference is revealed not by what they say when you continue giving, but by how they respond the first time you establish a boundary. Those who genuinely value you will respect your limits even if they are disappointed. Those who only valued what they could receive from you will often react with anger, guilt, or manipulation. Their frustration is not evidence that your boundary is wrong. It is evidence that your boundary interrupted a pattern that benefited them. One of the greatest misunderstandings about kindness is the belief that it must always be soft. In reality, authentic kindness sometimes speaks difficult truths. Sometimes it declines unreasonable requests. Sometimes it walks away from repeated disrespect. something. Sometimes it remains calm while refusing to surrender its principles. Gentle does not mean weak. Patient does not mean passive. Forgiving does not mean allowing the same wound to be inflicted again and again. Strength and compassion are not enemies. Something. They protect one another. Without strength, compassion is easily exploited. Without compassion, strength becomes harsh. The healthiest life is built upon the balance of both. Imagine a tree with deep roots standing through every season. It offers shade, fruit, something, and shelter, but it does not uproot itself for every traveler who passes beneath its branches. It gives because giving is part of its nature, yet it remains firmly planted. People may benefit from its presence, something, but they cannot demand that it becomes something it was never meant to be. Your kindness should resemble those deep roots. It should come from stability rather than desperation. It should be an expression of who you are, not a bargain made in exchange for approval. Something. When you begin protecting your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being, some people will accuse you of changing. In truth, you are simply removing the unlimited access they once enjoyed. Boundaries have a remarkable way of exposing intentions. Something. Those who respected your humanity will remain. Those who respected only your usefulness may quietly disappear or loudly protest. Neither response should frighten you. It is impossible to build meaningful relationships while pretending that your own needs do not exist. Something. Healthy relationships are sustained through mutual respect, not endless sacrifice from one side. There is freedom in understanding that your worth is not measured by how exhausted you become while trying to satisfy everyone around you. Something. Your value does not increase because you carry burdens that were never yours. It does not depend on how many times you rescue people from the consequences of their own choices. Your value exists long before you perform another favor, solve another problem, something, or agree to another request. When this truth settles deeply within you, kindness transforms. It is no longer fueled by fear or obligation. It becomes intentional, wise, and rooted in self-respect, allowing generosity to remain a gift instead of becoming an expectation. Something. There is a principle woven deeply into human nature that many people discover only after years of disappointment. People rarely value what they believe they will never lose. The things that seem permanent often become invisible. Something. Not because they have lost their importance, but because certainty breeds familiarity, and familiarity quietly weakens appreciation. This pattern appears in friendships, families, romantic relationships, and even in the way people treat themselves. Something. When your presence becomes so predictable that others assume you will always be there regardless of how they behave, your value is no longer measured by your character. It is measured by your availability. Something. Many people spend their lives trying to prove their worth by becoming indispensable. They answer every call, solve every problem, cancel their own plans to accommodate others, and remain loyal even when that loyalty is never returned. At first, these actions seem admirable. They create the image of someone dependable and generous. But over time, something subtle begins to change. What started as appreciation slowly transforms into expectation. The words "thank you" become less frequent. Requests become more demanding. Your willingness to help is no longer viewed as generosity, but as something people naturally expect from you. This transformation rarely happens overnight. It grows through repetition. Every time you ignore your own priorities to rescue someone else without necessity, you reinforce a pattern. Every time you make yourself endlessly available without asking for mutual respect, you teach people that your time carries little value. Human beings often respond not only to kindness, but also to the signals surrounding it. If your time appears unlimited, others begin treating it as though it costs nothing. If your attention is always within reach, they stop recognizing it as something precious. Consider the difference between a resource that is abundant and one that is scarce. Water flowing endlessly from an open tap is often wasted without thought, while a single bottle of water in the middle of a desert is guarded with extraordinary care. The water itself has not changed. What has changed is the awareness of its value. Human relationships are influenced by similar psychology. Constant availability can unintentionally reduce appreciation because people assume it will always remain. Scarcity is not valuable because it is rare alone. It is valuable because it reminds people that something meaningful can disappear. This does not mean you should become distant, cold, or manipulative. It does not suggest creating artificial absence simply to gain attention. Genuine respect is never built through games. Instead, it grows when your life demonstrates that your time, energy, and emotional investment have purpose. When people see that you respect your own priorities, they are more likely to respect them as well. Your availability should be intentional, not automatic. Giving your attention freely is generous, but giving it without wisdom invites people to mistake access for entitlement. Many individuals fear disappointing others so deeply that they never allow anyone to experience the consequences of taking them for granted. They answer messages immediately regardless of their own responsibilities. They rearrange important commitments whenever someone else makes a last-minute request. They repeatedly forgive patterns that continue unchanged because they believe patience alone will transform another person's behavior. Yet each accommodation quietly communicates something. It suggests that your own plans are flexible while everyone else's remain fixed. It teaches others that your limits can always be adjusted if enough pressure is applied. Respect grows in environments where both people recognize that the relationship requires care. If one person constantly gives while the other constantly receives, balance slowly disappears. Relationships become strongest when both individuals understand that trust, attention, and effort are valuable gifts rather than permanent guarantees. When someone realizes they could lose your presence through their own neglect or disrespect, they become more conscious of how they treat you. This is not about inspiring fear. It is about restoring awareness. There is wisdom in understanding that being needed is not the same as being respected. Many people confuse the two because both can feel rewarding in the beginning. Being needed creates the illusion of importance. Others constantly seek your advice, your support, your resources, or your encouragement. But if their connection to you exists only because of what you provide, then your usefulness has become the foundation of the relationship instead of your humanity. Respect, on the other hand, values who you are even when you have nothing to offer in return. Some of the strongest people are those who understand the power of healthy absence. They do not disappear to punish others or demand attention. They simply refuse to abandon their own lives in order to remain constantly accessible. They invest in their growth, protect their peace, and honor their commitments. Because of this, every moment they choose to share carries intention. Their presence feels meaningful because it is given freely rather than assumed automatically. When your life revolves entirely around pleasing others, people unconsciously begin organizing their expectations around your predictability. They assume you will always agree, always forgive, always adjust, and always remain. Breaking this pattern can feel uncomfortable. The first time you decline an unreasonable request, some may react with surprise. Others may question your loyalty or accuse you of changing. What they are truly reacting to is the disappearance of unlimited access. They became accustomed to receiving without considering the cost to you. Learning to value your own time changes the way others perceive it. When you protect your schedule, your emotional energy, and your attention with quiet confidence, you communicate that these things matter. People naturally recognize value in what is handled with care. This is not arrogance, it is stewardship. Just as you would not leave something precious exposed to careless treatment, you should not leave your peace available to constant interruption. Every meaningful relationship thrives on mutual appreciation rather than endless certainty. Gratitude remains alive when both people recognize that time together is a choice rather than an obligation. Love deepens when respect accompanies affection. Friendship becomes stronger when loyalty is freely offered instead of endlessly assumed. Your presence carries its greatest weight when it reflects purpose, self-respect, and genuine willingness rather than fear of disappointing others. Allowing every act of kindness to retain its meaning instead of fading into expectation. One of the greatest mistakes a person can make is believing that silence will eventually teach others how to respect them. Many people endure repeated disappointment because they assume that if they continue sacrificing, forgiving, and remaining patient, those around them will one day awaken with gratitude. They hope that kindness alone will inspire change. They believe their consistency will eventually soften selfish hearts. Yet human behavior often follows a different path. What is repeatedly tolerated is rarely questioned. It becomes accepted. Over time, acceptance becomes expectation, and expectation slowly transforms into entitlement. Every relationship is shaped by patterns. Those patterns are not created by words alone. They are built through repeated actions, repeated responses, and repeated compromises. If someone interrupts you every time you speak and you never address it, they gradually assume your voice can always be interrupted. If someone continually ignores your time while expecting you to honor theirs and you continue adjusting without objection, they begin believing your schedule exists to support theirs. These habits do not appear because people carefully plan to disrespect you. They grow because your responses quietly teach them what is acceptable. something. There is a profound difference between extending grace and rewarding harmful behavior. Grace acknowledges human imperfection while still recognizing the importance of accountability. Rewarding harmful behavior removes accountability altogether. Every time disrespect is met with greater sacrifice instead of honest correction, the lesson becomes distorted. Instead of learning that their actions carry consequences, the other person learns that poor behavior produces even more patience, more forgiveness, and more access to your kindness. Without intending to, you strengthen the very habits that continue hurting you. Many individuals fear confrontation because they associate it with conflict, rejection, or emotional pain. They convince themselves that avoiding difficult conversations preserves peace. Yet avoiding truth does not create peace. It creates temporary comfort while allowing deeper problems to grow beneath the surface. Unspoken frustration accumulates quietly. Small disappointments become lasting resentment. Eventually, the person who appeared endlessly patient becomes emotionally exhausted, wondering why no one seems to understand their pain. The answer is often uncomfortable. Others cannot respect boundaries that were never clearly established. It is important to recognize that boundaries are not punishments. They are expressions of self-respect. They communicate where your responsibility ends and another person's begins. Without boundaries, relationships become unbalanced because one person continually carries emotional burdens that belong to someone else. This imbalance rarely remains hidden. It affects trust, affection, and mutual appreciation. The person who constantly gives begins feeling invisible, while the person who constantly receives slowly loses awareness of the sacrifices being made. Some people mistakenly believe that protecting themselves makes them less compassionate. In reality, healthy boundaries protect compassion from becoming resentment. When you repeatedly ignore your own emotional needs, kindness slowly loses its joy. What was once freely given becomes heavy. Acts of generosity become obligations. Conversations become draining instead of meaningful. The heart was designed to give from abundance, not from constant depletion. A well that is never allowed to refill cannot continue providing water indefinitely. There are people who genuinely appreciate kindness, and there are people who simply become comfortable benefiting from it. The difference often becomes visible the moment you stop rewarding disrespect. A person who values you will seek understanding. They may ask questions, reflect on their behavior, or make sincere efforts to improve. Someone who valued only your endless accommodation may respond very differently. They may accuse you of becoming selfish. They may attempt to create guilt where none belongs. They may remind you of everything you once did for them while ignoring everything you continue to do. Their reaction reveals that they had become attached not to mutual respect but to unrestricted access. This is why consequences matter. Consequences are not acts of revenge. They are teachers. They reveal that actions influence relationships. If every broken promise receives immediate forgiveness without meaningful change, promises lose significance. If every insult is overlooked, respect gradually disappears from the conversation. If every betrayal is welcomed back without reflection or accountability, trust becomes little more than an empty word. Human beings grow when they recognize that choices carry weight. Removing every consequence often removes the opportunity for growth. Many people spend years trying to convince others to value them through increased effort. They work harder, give more, remain available longer, and become even more understanding. Yet respect cannot be purchased through endless sacrifice. It develops when both individuals recognize each other's dignity. The healthiest relationships are not built upon one person's willingness to endure everything. They are built upon shared responsibility, honest communication, and mutual care. Each person understands that kindness is something to protect, not something to exploit. There comes a moment when every individual must decide whether preserving someone else's comfort is worth losing their own peace. This decision is rarely dramatic. It often begins with simple acts of courage, speaking honestly instead of remaining silent, declining unreasonable requests without unnecessary guilt, refusing to participate in conversations that diminish your worth, walking away from repeated patterns that show no genuine desire for change. These choices may feel uncomfortable at first because they interrupt familiar routines, but discomfort is often the beginning of healthier relationships. Respect begins with the standards you establish for your own life. People observe not only how you treat them, but also how you allow yourself to be treated. When your actions consistently communicate that your time matters, your voice deserves to be heard, and your dignity is not negotiable, those who genuinely value you will rise to meet those standards. Those unwilling to do so reveal that they were more committed committed to the benefits they receive than to the relationship itself. Protecting yourself from repeated disrespect is not an abandonment of kindness. It is a declaration that kindness and self-respect belong together, and that generosity should never require accepting treatment that slowly erodes your confidence, your peace, or your sense of personal worth. Many people have been taught that kindness and strength stand on opposite sides of life. They grow up believing that a compassionate person must always be soft, endlessly patient, and willing to endure whatever others place upon them. They imagine that firmness belongs only to those who are cold, distant, or unfeeling. This misunderstanding has caused countless people to confuse weakness with goodness. They lower their standards in the hope of appearing loving. They silence their convictions in the hope of appearing humble. They surrender their boundaries because they fear that protecting themselves will somehow make them less compassionate. Yet genuine kindness has never required the absence of strength. In fact, without strength, kindness rarely survives for long. Think about the strongest foundations in nature. A towering tree offers shade because its roots are deep. A river nourishes the land because its banks give it direction. Without those boundaries, the river would spread aimlessly and lose its power. In the same way, compassion without structure becomes scattered. It flows wherever people pull it, regardless of whether their intentions are sincere or selfish. Strength is not the enemy of kindness. It is the force that gives kindness purpose and protects it from being consumed. There are individuals who recognize generosity as a gift, and there are those who recognize it as an opportunity. The first group responds with gratitude, respect, and reciprocity. The second responds with expectation. They notice your willingness to forgive, and instead of becoming more careful with your heart, they become more careless. They discover that you avoid conflict, so they push your limits a little further. They realize you hesitate to disappoint others, so they continue asking for more. None of this happens because kindness is flawed. It happens because kindness without strength leaves itself unguarded. A compassionate heart should never become an open invitation for repeated harm. Forgiveness is a beautiful quality, but forgiveness does not require abandoning wisdom. You can release bitterness without restoring unlimited access. You can wish someone well while refusing to participate in patterns that continue damaging your peace. Many people confuse reconciliation with forgiveness, believing both must happen together. Yet trust is rebuilt through consistent change, not through repeated promises. Kindness may choose to forgive, but strength wisely decides when confidence has truly been earned again. One of the greatest acts of self-respect is recognizing that saying no does not make you unkind. It simply means you understand that every yes carries a cost. Every commitment demands time, energy, emotional investment, and attention. These resources are limited. When you give them away carelessly, you often discover that you have little left for your own purpose, your own family, your own health, or your own peace of mind. A person who never protects these resources eventually becomes exhausted, not because they lack generosity, but because they lack discernment. Discernment is the quiet companion of wisdom. It allows you to recognize the difference between someone reaching out for genuine support and someone repeatedly depending on your inability to refuse. At first, the distinction may seem difficult to identify. Both situations involve requests. Both may involve emotional stories or urgent needs. The difference becomes clearer when patterns emerge. A sincere person appreciates your help, but also respects your limits. A manipulative person notices your limits only as obstacles to overcome. They may use guilt, obligation, or emotional pressure to convince you that protecting yourself is an act of selfishness. Their words attempt to redefine your boundaries as personal attacks because your boundaries interrupt their expectations. True kindness never asks you to betray yourself. It does not require constant emotional sacrifice to prove your value. Your worth has never depended upon how many burdens you can carry for other people. It has never been measured by your willingness to ignore your own needs until there is nothing left to give. Real compassion begins with recognizing that you are also deserving of the care you freely extend to others. The same patience you offer your friends should be offered to yourself. The same understanding you show strangers should include your own struggles. The same protection you desire for those you love should also surround your own life. Strength expresses itself quietly. It does not need constant recognition. It does not seek unnecessary conflict. It remains calm when others attempt to provoke it. It speaks honestly without becoming cruel. It refuses manipulation without becoming bitter. something. It stands firmly without humiliating those who disagree. This kind of strength is often misunderstood because it lacks dramatic displays of power, yet it possesses something far more enduring: stability. Something. Stable people are difficult to control because their decisions are guided by principles instead of pressure. They do not abandon their values to avoid temporary discomfort. When kindness is supported by strength, relationships become healthier. Something. Expectations become clearer, communication becomes more honest. Respect grows because both individuals understand that generosity is a choice rather than an obligation. People value what they recognize as intentional. Something. They become more mindful of your time because they know it is not endlessly available. They appreciate your support because they understand it comes from willingness rather than fear. Something. Every act of compassion carries greater meaning because it is freely offered instead of silently demanded. There will always be those who misunderstand your strength. Some may accuse you of becoming distant simply because you no longer allow constant interruption. Something. Others may say you have changed because you no longer accept treatment that once wounded you. These reactions can tempt you to return to old habits, but remember that not every criticism deserves agreement. Something. Sometimes criticism simply reveals that another person preferred the version of you who required less respect. Growth often disappoints those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. The strongest form of kindness is neither loud nor dramatic. It is steady. Something. It knows when to give and when to pause. It understands that compassion without wisdom eventually becomes exhaustion, while wisdom without compassion becomes coldness. The healthiest path is found where both qualities walk together. Something. One protects the heart from becoming hardened by disappointment, while the other protects it from being repeatedly wounded through unnecessary sacrifice. When strength and kindness become partners instead of opposites, generosity remains sincere, boundaries remain clear. Something. And your compassion continues flowing from a place of confidence rather than fear, allowing your character to inspire respect instead of inviting exploitation.